from the public? No. And we're going to just bypass the chair's report because we have a lot of things going on. There are warrants on the table to review and approve. And we have regular session minutes from November 16th and 28th that we all looked at, correct?
Yes.
And are we ready for approval?
I move that we approve minutes for 16th and 28th.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Superintendents report?
The only thing I have to remind everyone of tonight is that next week, on Tuesday, the 12th, at 7:00 p.m. is the vocal winter concert, and it'll be for 6th through 12th grades. And on Thursday, the 14th, is the instrumental concert for the winter season. And we just invite everybody to come out both of those nights for some wonderful talent and entertainment by our middle school and high school musicians, and enjoy the season with us. And since the principals and directors are here tonight, I asked them just to give brief little updates right before they present their budgets. So that's my superintendent's report.
Okay, good. And our student rep is absent today. So do we have old business?
We don't.
No. And so our new business is first primary school fiscal year 18 budget requests. Yep, you're up, Mrs. Blaisdell.
Oh, what's fast?
Oh, yeah, we're going to run on time.
We're gonna be efficient about this.
On time.
That's great.
Under budget.
On time, always. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me here tonight to present the FY19 Lunenburg Primary School budget. Before I start, I wanted to share a few of the great things that have recently taken place and that students are working on currently in their classrooms at the Lunenburg Primary School. The staff, takes a lot of pride in the work that we do with our students, and I want to take every opportunity to talk to you about what is happening at our primary school. It's always some wonderful, wonderful things to hear and learn about. So we've launched Ruler in each classroom. The Ruler curriculum was created at the Yale Institute of Emotional Intelligence and is designed to teach each student how to recognize emotions in themselves and others, understand the causes and consequences of emotions, label emotions accurately, express emotions appropriately, and regulate emotions effectively. Students have made charters in each one of their classrooms, and the charters answer the question, how do we want to feel when we come to school each day? What will we do each day to live our charter? And what will we do if we find that we're not living our charter? So there's some beautiful charters. I invite you all to check on to the Lunenburg Facebook site. I've posted those charters there, and you can certainly find some of the examples of the beautiful charters that the children themselves have developed. They are talking about mood meters and using a mood meter to identify their current feelings and to talk about the intensity of some of our emotions, whether they're more or less than another emotion that they might be having. They are also going to be learning in January and February about a meta moment and what we need to do in a meta moment to see our best selves. A meta moment is usually used when you have a sudden emotion that arises that's a negative feeling, and it helps a child then use a strategy of envisioning their best self and how they're going to solve that problem that was just presented to them. And then they'll also learn about a blueprint for problem solving. The Ruler lessons are integrated into all of our morning meetings and throughout our day. Feeling words are identified at our in each one of the literature pieces that they're reading. How does this character feel? Is that more and less intense than sad or happy, or those kinds of things. So those are some of the things about the emotional intelligence work that's going on at the school. November certainly was a busy month. You know, Veterans Day celebration was just phenomenal. We invited our families of our veterans and our veterans to celebrate with us in that morning, and then our children did a beautiful job, and we're very, very respectful to our veterans, sang some beautiful, made me almost tear up. They just did such a great job doing that. And that was the result of, you know, several weeks of work in our music department, helping our children learn about what a veteran is and learn about the songs that we would sing that day to honor them. So that was a highlight of our November month. The second grade contributed by completing a beautiful flag out in front of the gymnasium, so that what they did is they researched in their own families, veterans, and then added their names to stars, and then the stars were all put up in the shape of a beautiful flag to honor our veterans. This is a kickoff for the second grade on their service learning project, where they learn about veterans and then do different things to honor our veterans in our area. Their culminating activity will be in February, where they then send Valentine's Day cards to area VA hospitals. The kindergarten students have learned about Native American Indians and had a wonderful Thanksgiving feast of cornbread and apple crisp and popcorn, because that's what you would like if you were a kindergartner for Thanksgiving. And they started their work on their science portfolios to go along with the new science curriculum, and are now preparing to study various versions of classic gingerbread man stories from across the world. Some of those, we call it the month of all things gingerbread in kindergarten, because we do math gingerbread, and we do reading gingerbread, and we do writing gingerbread, and it's all things gingerbread in the kindergarten program. First grade is busy learning how to read. That's what we do. Read. All sorts of types of text and print. It's just been a wonderful experience to go into a classroom, see how they were progressing at the beginning of the year, and to see where their reading is now. It's pretty amazing. They're finishing up units on seasons and starting the first of a series of co-taught science units involving the sun and the moon. So they're focusing on the new science curriculum. For literature and social studies, they have started their Holidays Around the World units, where the students travel to different classrooms with their passports in hand, and learn about traditions in Holland, Israel, Mexico, England, Germany, and France. First grade studied the Nutcracker, reading several stories and several versions of the Nutcracker, and they explored it as well in their music classes. And then this past week, they traveled to Monty Tech to view the Nutcracker. The performance was put on by the Paul Emilio Dance Studio, and the students were extremely excited to see some of their friends dancing on the stage. In addition to the Veterans Day service learning projects in November, second graders enjoyed a friendship breakfast in their classrooms and shared things that they were thankful for. Students had a word parade and learned about juicy words. The word parade is a tradition in the second grade. They dress up to illustrate their word and parade around the school and end up in the gymnasium and then talk all about their words. You know, how many words are adjectives, how many were nouns, how many were verbs, and standing forward and saying, same as me, those kinds of activities. It's an amazing thing to watch the second graders when they start to really expand their vocabulary, not only when they're speaking, but in their writing. Their writing does a huge explosion from the beginning of the year to now in the second grade with that work on the word parade. They will also be starting their Mega Math unit soon, and that's designed to help them be more effective when solving word problems. It provides them with a step-by-step kind of process in solving word problems. And then they will be starting some of their science units as well, and traveling to different classrooms to learn about habitats. So that will be the next thing they do. And finally, today was another exciting day at the primary school. We had Tiger visit us today. Tiger is a theater performance group from Plymouth State University in New Hampshire. This troupe of performers have visited the last several years and brought to us in part by the Christopher Mackey Memorial Foundation. They performed Let Your Stars Shine and focused on anti-bullying messages and practicing kindness and acceptances of differences. They also went around to several of the classrooms and did workshops with the kids after they did the performance. So it's always an exciting day. The kids talk about it for many days after. We have now added, I think, a sixth tiger to our collection at the Lunenburg Primary School. So we're very proud of that and display them throughout the building. That was the challenge for the students when they were leaving the performance, is to go see how many tigers they could find in the building, because they're all over the place. So currently, now I'm going to dive into the budget part. That was my highlight. And like I said, I always like to make sure I highlight the good things that are going on when I have a microphone and set in front of me and being on TV. So here we go. Currently, we are serving 400 students at the Lunenburg Primary School, pre-K through second grade. As you can see from all of the things that I just shared, our most valuable resource we have in our school is our staff. They are loving, kind, caring individuals who work very hard to take care of all of our students and address the learning needs of the whole child. We have many goals when working with our children, and this year we are focusing on strengthening our social emotional learning curriculum in the areas of science, and as well as our science, technology, engineering, and math curriculums. That being said, we need resources as well on which to engage our students in many activities and lessons, and to accomplish the many can-do statements for our academic and social emotional learning. This year, we are requesting $61,500 for our expense budget. This is approximately $9,000 more than last year's budget. In most of the lines, I am requesting the same or slightly less than last year. I can certainly answer any questions that you have regarding any of the lines as we proceed. One example is the computer contractual line, which shows a decrease. The computer contractual line was just recently moved into each one of the school's budgets, so that's why you can see that there now under the primary school. Last year, we were able to purchase online Lexia reading program at a discount. We had Lexia for many years. We were up last year to renew. We were able to do a multi-year deal with the company, so that is good for us for until 2020. So at this point, that is where the reason for the decrease there. The other item that is in that line is the AimsWeb Plus assessment tool. We are requesting an increase in our professional development line. That is the largest increase that you see of all my lines. And the furniture line is also up. The professional development line is the area where we are seeing that largest increase, as I said. Just as we have focused our efforts on the past couple of years on improving our teaching of math, responsive classroom, and emotional intelligence, we are continuing our work, and we're moving on to reading. We'd like to bring Project Read in to do two-day workshop for our pre-K through fifth grade teachers. Heidi might talk a little bit more about that. We're focusing on primary phonics curriculum, and we will be that is designed to not only improve our phonetic skills, but our reading curriculum as well, because it goes deeper into improving reading skills. So we will be able to provide our students with a solid phonetic foundation to improve reading and spelling. It's designed to build active, thoughtful, purposeful readers using a targeted multisensory approach. And the Project Read program is not necessarily new to Lunenburg. It was probably about 15 years ago when we had formally taught our entire staff about Project Read and had teachers using that approach. Teachers are using something very similar now, but it's time to, like we did for a responsive classroom, make sure that everybody is on the same page and using the same language and teaching our children the basics of reading. We will be sending another team of educators to the Anchor Institute to expand our base of emotional intelligence learning in our classrooms. And then the last item in that line is to upgrade our Ames Web Plus. It comes with a training session to make sure that teachers are familiar with how to use the assessment tool effectively, as well as how to interpret the assessment results more effectively. Our furniture line is the next area that shows an increase. We've put furniture in the last couple of budgets, and each time that's the one area that ends up coming out. Again, we're looking to provide alternative seating opportunities for our children within the classroom, or standing opportunities, providing some standing desks for our students. Are there any questions about the expense portion of the budget?
Can
Okay.
you talk a little more about the Summer Emotional Intelligence Workshop?
Sure.
The PD line?
The professional development is in Yale. It's a 2-day workshop. We usually, they have a price for a team of 3. And so we would be sending our new guidance counselor to the presentation, as well as 2 teachers.
It had listed one person or one unit, I guess.
Okay.
So I wasn't
Yeah,
quite sure
well, that's
how
the
that
amount for
worked.
the team.
For the team, okay.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
Just helps clarify.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
Is there, I'm looking at the furniture line for the standing desks. Have you, has there been an exploration of other things that might be good in the classroom if that line item is too large to be funded? Do you have like something else that you would?
Well, I mean, teachers have provided lots of different opportunities. We have some of those chairs that sit on the floor, and they have just like a strap that goes around the back that helps them just stand and sit and read, that type of thing. Our desks, we can push them up as high as we can, and, some of our little ones, that still works for them. So there's other ways that we can provide alternative seating for them.
Okay, thank you.
Is that only for the pre-K? Because on the top it says pre-K.
No, it's for
It's all
pre-K to second grade.
Okay.
Good questions.
Well, it just says.
Yeah. We try to catch all of those things. Okay.
One itty bitty one.
Sure.
It was on the page with the instructional reading materials, the Scholastic News. It says grade 1, and then the next line is also grade 1. I'm thinking that it was meant to be
Grade
K 1 and 2.
Right, K 1 and 2, correct. Set. All right. So regarding the personnel requests, we are requesting an additional second grade teacher. This past year, we added a grade 1 teacher, And we feel that the second grade is equally critical as far as the learning time for students, and that smaller teacher-to-student ratio would be extremely beneficial for our student learning and mastery of the key foundational reading, writing, and math skills. Our class sizes would then remain for those students that are currently in six sections, 20 to 21. We are requesting a special education preschool teacher to meet the needs of our special education students and to expand the opportunities for preschoolers across our town of Lunenburg. We think that that would be critically important. We always end up having a number of students on the wait list each year, and we would like to be able to provide those opportunities for our families here and incorporate, more opportunities to keep our numbers equal as far as our special education populations and our typical peers. And the last thing I'm requesting is an increase as far as the assistant principal. We're looking to make sure that we can continue to provide the consultation and observation to our classroom teachers, get us both inside the classroom more to be able to be true educational leaders and not just managing and running a school. And I think that that can be done by increasing the assistant principal's position from half to full. Any questions regarding the personnel budget?
Can you just remind me,
Sure.
did we do a study in regard to the pre-K situation?
We
last
did
year?
do a study.
And what was their recommendation?
At that time, they did not recommend increasing them to another classroom. They felt that they didn't have the data to support that.
Okay.
Are you, just one quick question, the current grade 1 is at 108. What have you seen in the school for increase year to year? Bringing a sixth teacher in would get class sizes below 20, which is, awesome. But are you expecting more of an influx? As you said, it would get them around 20. If you're getting them down to 18 or 19, even better. But
Right.
Are you expecting?
I'm expecting that we always get move-ins, and
What's your typical move-in rate? Is it 5 or 6, or is it really vary per grade?
it does vary per grade, but over the summer, we can get 30 to 40,
Okay. Got it.
on average,
Okay.
across all
Across all
grades.
the grades, got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the other thing I wanted to make sure I highlighted, in this is regard to the personnel. I was asked to provide some feedback so far on the additional first grade teacher, and I've talked to both parents and teachers to gather some of this feedback. We don't necessarily have the common assessment data yet. That wouldn't be done until about January, but we're excited to see that data because what the teachers and the parents are reporting right now. There's talking about the fact that they're able to learn each student more intimately and get to know them and have conversations with them more than they used to be able to do with 25 to 26 students in a classroom. They're able to tailor to individual student needs before, during, and after a lesson more quickly, catching students who need more time learning a concept more quickly and able to intercede. All students in a small group of reading are showing increased progress compared to what the previous groups were showing in past years. This is a result to having more direct instruction with each child, being able to reinforce more skills deficits with students who struggle and advance them faster and further, and able to challenge the students that are doing really well and get them to move further and faster. Behaviors have improved, able to address misbehaviors more directly and reinforce positive behaviors more frequently. Environment is calmer. Students have more room to spread out when they're doing silent reading or when they're working on projects. They're meeting with all students more frequently during their writing workshops to conference on their writing skills, and they're able to do even small group math groups because they don't have to spend as much time during reading time. They're able to provide small group work in the math area as well. Teachers feel less stressed because they are able to meet the needs of the students they have and not experiencing the anxiety or of not having enough time to work with each student because there are too many in a class. So all of those things are the positive things that they're sharing, and I did ask them if there were any negatives, and at this point they haven't been able to share any with me. So it's been very positive. Any other questions that you have for the primary school?
No?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thanks, Jim.
So, Ms. Bertram, just to go back the last 4 years relative to that kindergarten to first grade increase, I pulled up the spreadsheet, and looking back to 2015, from that kindergarten enrollment to first grade enrollment, there was a +8 students. The next year, from kindergarten to first grade, there was a +1. And then this year, from kindergarten to first grade, there was a +13 students that joined our rank. So it also the correlation, if we look at kindergarten, the increase seems to be tied to where that kindergarten enrollment comes in. If we don't have, we have lower numbers, the gain is greater. So the highest enrollment resulted in the least amount of gain from kindergarten to first grade, and that was a year.
This was 1 to 2.
It was 1, yeah. It was.
No, this was first grade to second grade. In looking at an additional second grade teacher, and please don't get me wrong, I mean, in the perfect world, it would be fantastic to have all our classroom sizes, really taken down, but this was in response to the request around a grade 2 teacher.
Okay.
So I was looking at grade 1
to 2.
going to 2.
Okay.
And
that's 0, 10, and 4.
So all over the map, so you never know what you're going to get. Thank you.
Sorry, I cued in on the wrong grade level there.
No, but there's always a level of uncertainty with that you can't predict.
I know the other factor that we talk about, and I know when I met with the PTO earlier this year, one of the concerns that came up was just what that means for the educator that's bouncing back and forth between grade levels or being shifted around year to year. And that certainly has been a reality for a lot of our educators over the last couple years as our enrollment has increased, but it's still, some grades are up and other grades still remain at 5. So, sorry, Ms. Champagne.
That's okay. So, thank you for inviting me to attend this evening for this budget meeting. I did not prepare a narrative around all of the things that we've been doing at Turkey Hill. I'll just speak to 2 quick highlights. One is we had our turkey trot the day before Thanksgiving. I don't know if you recall, but it was raining rather vigorously outside. But the students had, for the 8 previous days, been collecting canned goods for the Lunenburg Food Bank, and I just didn't have the heart not to let them run. So my staff was amazing, and we went outside and got a little drizzly and soggy. The Lunenburg Police Department came down because I amended the route. So we ran up Oak Ave to the high school, and I was worried about that section. And like on 20 minutes notice, Officer Zarate, he was there, right? Him and another gentleman. So we had a wonderful time. So most of the kids participated and thought it was pretty fun to be running in the drizzle. And the other event I want to tell you about is this last Sunday, we had the Girls on the Run, had their culminating 5K event at Quinsigamond State Park, and it was so inspiring. It was just amazing. These little girls running and me desperately trying to keep up. And we had wonderful coaches. Just a real shout out to Nicole Therian, the middle school gym teacher, Danielle Salona, Charlotte Latendre, and Christy Shkuda, and Elizabeth Palumbo, a parent, who all provided coaching support. There were parents and siblings, and it was just a wonderful event. So, so initially we had thought, well, maybe we wouldn't do it again in the spring, but the coaches have come to me in recent days and said, sign us up, we're back in. So we do plan to do it again in the spring.
Are you going to let the same girls join, or are you going to open it up to new
So
girls?
it's not up to us, right? It's run by Girls on the Run. They do feel strongly, this time we had 26 girls, and they felt like that was too many to really give them the focus and attention they wanted. So they want to keep the number relatively small. So I don't know how Girls on the Run does it, if they give new participants first dibs.
Okay.
So we'll find out.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so I'm just going to jump into the budget, if that's okay.
Yep.
And the superintendent suggested that I just speak to increases. I know it looks like whoa, you know, but bear with me for a second, because it's really not that bad. So
So yours was the biggest.
I'm going to go to the professional development tab, if you don't mind. The first one is the Project Read training that Ms. Blaisdell talked about. I wanted to do it a little bit differently than the primary school is going to do. First of all, they're going to focus on phonics. We're going to focus on linguistics. And there was an offer, there's the offer of the 2-day live in-person training, and there's another offer of a 1-day webinar with a live person. And so I opted for the less expensive one, because the teachers are already embracing the curriculum and working with it, and so I think that a 1-day 6-hour training would probably do the trick for them. So that's the first item. The second item, Readers and Writers Workshop. You know, let me just be blunt. I'm concerned about our test scores, right? This new MCAS was challenging. It was challenging. And third grade of all my grades is just demanding a program that they can embrace and feel confident about, that has all of the elements that they need in order to teach reading effectively. And so happily, and I believe it was the superintendent who put $5,000 in the FY18 budget. So we're starting to use that for 2 days of Readers Workshop training, as well as empowering writers. That's another training for our 4th and 5th grade. So that's the biggest piece for me, is that second line. I want to provide strong professional development in-house for our teachers around the reading program. And the third one is that summer intelligence, emotional intelligence workshop. Again, there's potentially an online version of that. They haven't released the cost, but I'm hoping it would be considerably less than the $6,000. So I had to go with this at this point, but I'm hoping for a different option. We've had 3 people trained. Yeah, would like to have more people trained, but this is a high dollar, so trying to balance the needs. Okay? All right. The other item that's gone up is math workbooks. There's nothing fancy about that. That's the everyday math, all 3 grades. I think it went up because 5th grade got it through curriculum adoption money the year before. That's the only difference there. The biggest difference is computer services, of which there were none, that computer contractual services. And that's because all of the software-based things were in a variety of budgets. All right, so for example, Read Naturally Live, it used to be in the 4th grade reading supplies. Brain Pop, we usually have in the past have taken out of the gift fund. Tales to Go usually came out of the library funds. The next 2 items are brand new. Together they don't total $200. The Ames Web Complete, that was in Steve Malandrinos' technology budget. So that's the benchmarking system that we use along with the primary school. And 10 Marks was the amazing math software program that we got, right? We got this year through curriculum adoption. And but teachers have really embraced that. So that's why that number's so big. They pretty much came from a variety of different places, but I felt like it was important to put them together under software, since now we have this dedicated software budget for the elementary school.
Are
Yes.
you able to see at all how parents, families at home, and teachers are accessing these programs? In terms of, is there one English language arts program that gets used more than the other?
Okay, so, for example, Tales to Go, Victoria Whipple, our librarian, she absolutely keeps data on how many books are accessed, and I can get that, actually. If there's another meeting where I could attend and I could provide you with that information, or I could do it at a SAC meeting as well. That information is available. The Ames Web, of course, that's the benchmarking, so that's what the teachers use. The 10 marks, so originally we had gotten 80 subscriptions, and then through a stroke of good fortune, we were offered enough for the school, so that's just started getting up and running. So we should definitely, though, be able to have data on that. The idea is this individualized, differentiated program. I want kids to use it every day. In fact, next year I'd love to use it in part as a special area time, so gym, art, music, and then a technology software base with the 10 marks, and maybe Lexia or Read Live. So.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Last one is furniture. Biggest item, standing desks. That's just a wish list. I think one of you asked about, are there any other sort of furniture things? The stability balls and the wobble cushions and the move and sit cushions. Oh, teachers have, they try to access all those things, but we're envious of the middle high school beautiful standing desks, and we'd steal a few, so that's why I put that in there. And actually the other big item is that flip forms. That was a request from the music teacher. So they're risers. She has the kids sit on risers in the music room, and these would be much easier to work with. Those, I think, are quite old and heavy and difficult to put together. So
These ones go up against the wall, they fold
yeah,
up?
they're supposed to be foldable,
Right, okay.
mobile, lightweight,
Okay.
easy to move over to the stage,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So superintendent said, try it out, put it in there. So any questions about that part of the budget? I hope that clarifies why it looks like so much more. I'm really not
It is.
or that Mr. Santry would have you believe. But all right. And then in terms of personnel adjustments, I have but two requests. First of all, our current enrollment is 373, and so looking at next year, we see that grade 3 is going to be up to 122. So again, with the possibility of a few coming in, I'm hopeful that the school committee might consider the addition of one grade 3 teacher. So then we would have 6 third grade, 5 fourth grade, 6 fifth grade. And that's just in interest of keeping the ratio less than 25-1. And the only other thing that I had discussed with the superintendent was the addition of a part-time paraprofessional to support the special area instruction, which will allow grade level teachers to have common planning. That's sort of an elusive dream for us, is that all 5 or 6 teachers could have their planning at the same time. So I'm trying to make that happen in a creative way. Okay? All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Santry.
You ready for me?
Yep. Yes.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here to talk about FY19 budget. But before I begin, I just want to touch upon just a few of the service learning opportunities that we've had at Lunenburg Middle School so far. We have appointed a Project 351 ambassador for our school, which is Emily Begley. If you're not familiar with Project 351, one 8th grader from every district in the Commonwealth is chosen based on their leadership qualities, and then they actually meet in Boston at the State House, and they meet with the governor. They get some leadership training, and then they go out and they provide a community service project somewhere in Boston together to kind of mesh together. Then they come back to our community, and actually Emily will spearhead her own community service project here, and I'm here to support her through that. She is super excited, her parents are excited, and I just think she's a wonderful candidate for the ambassadorship. Lots of other opportunities that go along with Project 351, and I'll keep everybody updated in my weekly emails and when I come back to school committee to tell you how that's going, but extremely exciting. Also, we just completed a fundraiser, Hoops for Heart, to benefit the American Heart Association. So kids were able to meet after school, and they played basketball, they shot hoops, they did some drills, and they actually collected money along the way, and they were able to collect $950 for the Heart Association. And that was right before the Thanksgiving break, so just a wonderful opportunity to kids to give back. And then also, as part of our Genius Hour project, there's several 8th grade and 7th grade students who have found that their passion is to give back to other people. So if you come into our classrooms, you'll notice that there'll be donation boxes for toys or for food or for slightly used clothing, because these students have decided that they want to be able to give back to families that are less fortunate during the holidays, and that's one of their things that they've been working towards in their Genius Hour. So just some wonderful opportunities that kids have been taking advantage of at Lunenburg Middle. So as far as the proposed budget, I am requesting around $55,000, which is a $13,000 increase, which I was apprehensive at presenting to school committee before Ms. Champagne came up here, and after she really paved the way with that 30 grand, so I'm feeling much better right now. Thank you, Ms. Champagne. Appreciate that. No, but seriously, so the $13,000 increase represents, so there are 6 lines that represent about a 94% increase. So with your permission, I'd really like to talk about those 6 lines. I'll kind of tell you why that we need them, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. Our first one, I believe, is in our computer contracted services line, $3,400 for the IXL program. We were so fortunate last year, the PTO was able to purchase this program for us. It's similar to the 10 Marks program at the elementary school, except that it touches upon all 4 content areas instead of just mathematics. So students are able to enter it at their own level. They're able to work at their own pace. They're able to track their own success. Teachers are able to track where they're going. A wonderful intervention tool, and it's a wonderful differentiation tool. Kids can access it at home, they can access it at school. As far as numbers, Mrs. Ailes was talking about, do we have any way to track how many kids are using this? 194,000 math problems have been tried since August when we implemented this year. So like I said, it's not just mathematics, but there are other content areas, and we're working on incorporating all of those interventions, science, social studies, and DLA into that. But mathematics seems to be where we've really been hitting it, because that's really sometimes the toughest subject to differentiate, so kids are able to work there on their own and work at home and at school at that level. So
That's not the same kid, right?
no, that's a total of the school. So, when I working with the PTO, I said my commitment was to put that into my proposed budget in order to make sure that was sustainable. So the second line, is a $2,400 increase in our math line, as that's around our graphic calculators for the 8th grade. Some of the graphic calculators we're using now are past their prime, and they're on a downward spiral of not being usable anymore. So when talking with the 8th grade teachers, we're thinking 15 new graphic calculators for each team is a good start, and then as I develop budgets for a year as we go forward, we'll continue to have a replacement of those graphic calculators as we go through. So that's really what the increase for the math one was.
So they're not going to buy their own, like in high school?
No.
Okay.
So the next line is our art supply line. And that's a $2,300 increase. And, you know, every student in the middle school takes art as a specials, and they also take art as an enrichment sometime throughout the year. So we're burning through consumables in the art area a little bit more than we have in the past. And we don't have a repository of 30 years of art supplies that we had when we were at Turkey Hill, when we had leftovers from year after year. So when we moved into the new building, we're finding that our art supplies are on, that need to be replaced. So that's why you see that increase in our art supplies. Then we had an $1,100 increase in the science supplies, and that's really to support the next generation science standards that we jumped into in August. So some of that was the triple beam balances, and there's, for the 7th grade, the owl pellets, and then we had some graduated cylinders in there, and then other consumables for the labs that they've been doing. The next one was a guidance increase, and I'm sorry, it's about $1,300, I believe, and that would be in order to bring the Naviance program of the guidance program down to the middle school, so that would be new, but that's a program for college and career readiness that's been really successful at the high school, so we would bring it down to the middle school. It would be a college and career curriculum, where they'd be able to work in that with their guidance courses, and it's kind of a good alignment between the high school and the middle school also, so that's what represents that increase. And then we have, lastly, is our $1,700 increase in our music supplies, which is, I'm going to get this wrong, a baritone horn. So
Oh, I played that.
I understand that larger instruments, we try to purchase one every year because the cost of renting them for parents is astronomical. So if we're able to invest in a musical instrument and be able to lend those out to students in school, it really defrays the cost for parents of having to rent those every year. So that's where that increase comes in. So those were my major increases. If anyone had any questions about the budget.
I had a couple of questions with the periodicals and the library books. Maybe you could speak to how the students are accessing and using the library, since it's not a particular special, I don't believe.
Well, it's actually an enrichment class for 6th and 7th graders, so they're accessing that during their enrichment block, in which Mrs. Valley is teaching the curriculum, working on Google applications and how to use the library in different classes like that. But Mrs. Weiss, that's a great point, is that we struggle with being able to get the middle schoolers over into the library, and that's something we've been working with. So a lot of the periodicals I had weren't under the library periodicals,
Okay.
but some were classroom periodicals that are being used in social studies and science and different areas like that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And can you speak to almost the doubling of the IXL software fee? Is that what the reason was for that? Because last year it was $3,800, and this year you're requesting $73
Did PTO pay for half
for
of it?
IXL.
$7,200 because we
PTO
had,
paid for half of it, perhaps.
exactly. So
Yeah, okay, thank you.
it's a dual payment, one for in each of the fiscal years, so we pay 34 and 34, which is the total. So,
Okay.
thank you. Any other questions around budget? All right. So now for my recommendations for personnel, I would like to, I am requesting an additional classroom teacher for next year. As it pans out right now, I believe that would be a 6th grade science teacher. The current 5th grade is at 126. And over the past 2 years at the 6th grade level, the first year moving into the building, we had 12 new enrollments at the 6th grade level. And up to right now, December 6th, we have 9 new 6th grade students. So that's 21. So if we ballpark that at 10, moving in over the summer, we're looking at 136, which if we had 5 sections of 6th grade, we're looking at numbers above 25 to 1 where we look at adding an additional teacher. So that would put the middle school at 6 sections per grade level for the first time since 2007, 2008, when we had similar enrollment numbers, which were over 400.
Just a quick, grade 7 and grade 8 are transposed here on enrollment, yes? The current enrollment, just figuring that out.
Yes, so grade 7, so
The current grade 7 is at 153?
that's 6th grade, so that would be next year's 7th grade.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, and next year's 8th
Got it,
grade
got
would
it,
be
got it.
126.
Okay, sorry, I was confused.
No
Okay.
problem.
I do have a question,
Sure.
just out of curiosity. Do you have a space for this?
It's a great question. So I do have, and speaking with the superintendent, with speaking some teachers, we do have an idea of how we'd still be able to keep interdisciplinary teams in order. So we don't have a physical classroom in the middle school space, but we have ideas of where we can incorporate a classroom there.
Okay.
But I wouldn't want to go on local TV and make that announcement
No,
to a
no,
teacher
no,
that
I
hasn't
just-
seen it. But those are things that we have been planning for as we
Okay,
move
all
forward.
right, thank you.
No problem. So my next recommendation would be for a full-time assistant principal for the middle school. One of the recommendations is because of our increased enrollment, we're just getting more kids than we had in the past. And then also it allows us to maintain that proactive approach and that proactive philosophy that you need to have with middle school students. So not being reactive in the nature of what they're doing, but being more proactive, more learning and teaching and being in places where kids are making bad decisions and trying to help them through that piece. Also, we are seeing an increase in students with mental health issues. We're seeing an increase with kids with behavior dysfunction, and being able to have another administrator to be able to help work with kids and make sure we have a safe and secure environment, I think is very important. And also, it gives us the ability, how Ms. Blaisdell said, is to be able to get in the classrooms and be those curriculum instruction and assessment leaders that we need to be as we start getting larger. So that would be my recommendation, would be for a full-time assistant principal.
I just have a clarifying question.
Sure.
In terms of a 0.5 to a full-time assistant principal, can you speak to the difference between the dean of students that you have and the assistant principal position? How does that-
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
So a dean of students, and the dean of students that I have is just absolutely phenomenal, but she's part-time. And that she isn't in a supervisory capacity. So she does all things student behavior. So she works with the discipline piece of things instead of more of the reflective piece with teachers, isn't able to do the evaluative piece that we like. She does professional development, but that would be an area I would like her to continue with, like the assistant principal to continue with. But also that parent communication piece that's so important that sometimes when we're in 8 different directions, that gets overlooked. To be able to communicate with parents in the community more effectively, I think that would be another major component of having an assistant principal.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And lastly, I'd just like to talk, I know Mr. Malandrinos has already presented his budget, and that was, I know there was separate budgets for them, but one of them was for a one-to-one initiative with students in the 7th and 8th grade, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of a baseline or why I was recommending that. So our first year in the building, we had lots of resources and lots of technology, and as I worked with my school advisory council, we created goals in our school improvement plan that dictated that teachers were going to use this technology and students were going to use this technology, and we wanted reports out on how it was going, and we wanted PD to support teachers, and guess what? It worked. Like, teachers have bought into the fact that technology is an important and a crucial part of the instructional component. So now the demand for the Chromebooks that we have is outweighing the supply that we have. So, in talking with teachers and talking with administrators, that next move, we understand would be a one-to-one initiative with 7th and 8th grade. It gives them the responsibility of having their own device, and it gives them the ownership and the leadership of having that, and then prepare them to move into high school, where now it ramps up and they're going to need to be able to have that. So that's kind of where the progression was. Lots of things change in 2 years. I thought 2 Chromebooks per grade level would be plenty when we began planning the building. Doesn't seem like that's the case now, so I'm presenting you with a budget that would have a 7th to 8th one-to-one initiative. Okay. Is there any other questions?
No.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Oh, I've been sick for a week.
You sound terrible. Don't get me sick.
I'm sorry.
That's
I'll
okay.
turn it
Mr.
off on Dawn
Spadafino,
Marie.
welcome.
That way. Hi, Mr. Spadafino.
Good evening. Just to highlight a few of the things that have been going on at the high school recently. Before Thanksgiving break, we had our academic achievement rally, where we recognized our students that made honor roll, students who received the Abigail and John Adams scholarships. One student, Emma Jones, received a math scholarship through WPI for a math competition that she was in. If she chooses to attend WPI, she will receive a $1,000 scholarship. And then Alexander Ryan, we recognized him as a National Merit Commended student for his work with the PSATs last year. So it was some good stuff, and then we had some fun and games, which is also nice to unwind and get ready for that Thanksgiving break. Students at the high school have been involved with clothing drive. The junior class filled up, I understand, quite a bit of space in ECP with donations of clothing, toys, just the household items, and just stuffed animals. I mean, I can imagine that's nice to get rid of some of those things in families. So a lot of decluttering, and then therefore helping the class and an organization, which was nice. And Gift Mart, quite a few of our seniors took advantage of being part of Gift Mart, and even some of our underclassmen took advantage of helping organize, making pickups and deliveries, and the students that we approached about it this year, in advisories, we talked with the senior class, and the ones that were involved last year were really excited to get back involved this year. So again, giving back to the community, which was nice. Winter sports is up and going. We're a couple of weeks now under our belt, a week and a half. Teams have started scrimmaging. Hockey scrimmages tonight. Girls basketball was over the weekend. Boys basketball was last week as well. And yesterday, one of the big things that's going on at the high school from this point until May will be our NEASC accreditation. So we had a couple of folks from NEASC come out to meet with the steering committee, the standard chairs, which is now the self-reflection committee, and then the faculty at our faculty meeting yesterday. So kind of laid out what it's going to be all about. We created a bit of a timeline with how we're going to tackle those using our after-school meetings, our professional development times, and the timeline is very, very crunched for getting our self-reflection reports done and everything. But we're going to be having surveys that are going to go out next week. We're going to open that window for about 2 weeks for students to finish. We'll allot some class times, hopefully, for parents to give their input, and for our faculty to give input on how we're doing as a school. So that will be going out in the next week, early next week, probably Monday. As for the budget, any questions about things at school? Or move on?
I actually was wondering if we could have an update on how the position of Dean of Students, because that's new for you guys this year, how that is working out at the high school level.
So at the high school level, the Pete McAuliffe's position of part-time,
Right.
Dean of Students, part-time, athletic director, half-time. Probably for the first season, fall season, it was majority was athletic director stuff. There's lots of activities at night. There's lots of scheduling with the new fields and all that stuff. So as the year has gone on and things have calmed down a little bit, there's been much more Dean of Students activities at the high school. He's doing, running detentions on Tuesdays because that's a faculty meeting day, so we're not able to run those. He does that now. Supervises lunch, does a lot of the lower level discipline, is there if myself or Mr. McGrath is called into something else. He's just another set of hands that we're able to access, which is good. Hopefully, as time goes on, he'll be doing more of the administrative stuff. But that first season, because of so much stuff that's, so many kids that involved in athletics and whatnot, it was more on the heavy side of athletic director.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So for this budget, the request, seems high. It's $148,000. It's a $40,000 increase from last year. But I'll go through the big money increases. So anything over $1,000, I'll touch on. So the graduation expenses was up almost $1,600, and that was due to the increased cost of the sound. Our sound technician costs have gone up, and for next year, as those who were on stage last year can testify that we need to increase the size of the stage.
Oh,
As you go through it one time, you realize that we need a bigger stage. It was beautiful out there, but that's one of the things that we would change. So to make it slightly larger, so we can fit everybody on there. A $2,000 increase for NEASC accreditation. Those are for the stipends for the steering committee members that do continue on. That wasn't part of this year's budget because it was unanticipated, but for next year we need to put $2,000 away for that. There was a $1,400 increase for professional development, and that's AP training in 3 areas. It was in calculus, English, and then AP government has a new test next year. So they're revamping that. So Mr. Stevenson is going to get trained for that test. There's about a $3,500 increase in English textbooks. And in the past, the last couple of years, some of that money's been in, that's replacement text money. And that's been through curriculum adoption. We've been able to use that, so it's kind of now shifted back into our operating budget. Just over $1,000 for social studies texts. We're probably about 10 textbooks short for this 8th grade coming into 9th grade. So it's just purchasing that same type of book for the incoming class. For high school art, there was a $5,200 increase for high school art. Part of those were 3D printing materials, the laser engraving supplies. These are things that we had from last year through the building project that now we need to invest in. Paper. That paper is for a lot of the painting classes, and then the cost of clay. There was an increase, and then shipping and handling is part of the budget that they're dealing with now. So the increase there is shown as shipping and handling. As we've done the budget a little bit differently this year, some of those areas there was a 15% increase, just as we were doing line items, and those might be able to come out in some areas, and one of these is in art. So I would anticipate, I think it was about $1,500 that could come off right away. But as it was presented to you guys, as you guys have them, that's where there was an extra $1,500. Special education, instructional materials, there was a $2,000 increase. However, a chunk of that money is actually going to be moved. That's through our ACE program. And since ACE exists in a different building, we had talked about that cost being shifted into a different line eventually. So that cost is about $1,250. So the special education and instructional materials is really about a $700 increase there. Science supplies is about $5,000. This year we don't run biotech class. Next year we anticipate running that. So one of the, that's to biotech labs. It's also, there's our AP Bio and Anatomy and Physiology labs are part of that cost, and a good chunk of that money is for the pig dissection. And being able to purchase those materials. And then materials for the greenhouse are part of that. The high school lease of guidance software is about $4,500. Virtual high school is back in the guidance budget. Last year, that was in curriculum adoption. So it's just coming again back into the high school budget. So that's virtual high school. And then phys ed supplies was about a $4,000 increase. And those were there's some new games they wanted to be able to purchase, replacement equipment like football flags and belts, indoor soccer balls, or some of those things that we don't have. The football flags is anybody that was at the Powder Puff game. We didn't necessarily have enough for everybody to have flags, and there was a lot of fumbling around trying to get them on. And then some equipment for the weight room and the cardio room, and that's like a plyo boxes that students are jumping up on. Pull-up bands, foam rollers are all part of those costs. Yep. And then for new furniture, it's about a $5,500 increase. That increase is directly related to a new elliptical machine, if we're able to purchase one for the cardio space. Right now, that room is used pretty heavily. That is a very sought-after machine. Lots of kids use it, adults use it. We've had students in there before school, teachers in there before school. During school now, we have in our cardio space and PE spaces, 5 periods a day are being used for phys ed classes in those areas. After school, it's open now for students. And then beyond that, the adult community ed is using that space. So that would be the elliptical machine. Then we have some music increases. About $2,300 for the marching band. That's for marching band music and drills, and a snare drum as part of marching band with the harness and all that stuff. And $2,800 increase for music equipment is a replacement of the gong and the tenor drum, which are each about almost 20 years old. And then a conductor's podium was part of that cost. Then there was a $1,300 increase in music transportation, and that's to try to take those busing costs off of the kids and the music aiders. Now, part of this is for the competitions that they want to, that they intend on going on, and if this cost gets shifted to students and students are not able to make that work, then the band can't attend the competitions because they just wouldn't have enough, the numbers aren't large enough for band to be able to absorb that. And then the high school music repair equipment is about $3,000. That goes for 2 grand piano tunings 3 times a year, and then for some small and large instrument repairs. So those are the main budget increases, and actually those costs right there are just over $40,000, which is directly related to the increase in the budget. Questions?
I just have a question for
Yeah.
you, and I guess it's for both you and Mr. Santry. In the explanation of the library expenses, there are things that are come up multiple times, some in the middle school library expenses and some in the high school library expenses. So I just wanted to get an idea, because the library is used by both schools, do you guys just split that? How is that determined? I don't know if it comes up in other areas, but I just happened to notice it in this one.
Yeah, she's been pretty consistent throughout that as just a high school, going for just the high school side of things.
Okay.
And then as she's gotten the middle school kind of under her guidance too, that she's been, I think, maybe, I don't know how consistent it's
So I
been.
think the
Sorry.
high school,
Yeah.
I think the high school expenses, the library expenses is an addition to what she was requesting before.
Okay,
And then for the books and periodicals, those are specifically for our preteen and adolescent students,
Because-
so they're ordering those, and then she's ordering other high school books.
Okay, because she covers 6 through 12, so, okay, all right, great.
Superintendent Collins also asked me to talk about the one-to-one Chromebooks for ninth grade. In talking with teachers in the ninth grade, I mean, we know kids are using them a lot. We were able to purchase an extra set, an extra cart, Chromebook cart for the ninth grade for this year. So kids, we're almost able to have access for almost half of the grade is able to access Chromebooks in some way, shape, or form. By allowing all students to have them, to have access to them, teachers have talked about the peer editing that can happen in the classrooms. That can't necessarily happen now unless those Chromebook carts are signed out. Electronic conferencing teachers can have with students in kind of real time. And this was something Mr. Stevenson said, just useful for learning. Inevitably, questions and topics come up in class discussions. When I teach my seniors, I often say, let's look that up, but I can't do that with freshmen unless, again, they have that cart signed up. But just some of those experiences that are right away. And then just the logistical stuff of signing out the cart, taking 5 minutes to get it back, distribute those, get them logged up and on. And depending on how quickly they come up, another 5 minutes can be gone, then putting them back away, and that 50-minute period is now chopped into 35 to 40 minutes, so just losing that instructional time. And as for, additions to staffing, just, being realistic about where we all are, I think we're a year away from really making a strong push for a computer science teacher at the high school. I think that's certainly a need and it's coming, but I think, being realistic with where we are, it may not be the right time for that. However, there was one that, as Mr. Santry was talking, that hit me with, I think a library aide position would be something that I would request. It's something that, as we just talked about, Miss Valley being torn between two schools, it's hard to give kids access to the library all the time. And I think having somebody else there to help support kids and to supervise and to check books in and out and just keep things running while she's either running a class or is running a class or is helping a class with research, that could be helpful for all students.
Can you just speak to what her time, I mean, obviously that's, all these grade levels, 7 grade levels. Is she spending most of her time co-teaching with other teachers? Is she teaching classes as a special?
It varies during different times of the year.
Always busy.
For the most part, she is, but in the second half of the year, she will be very, very busy. That's where we have a bulk of our research papers.
Okay.
That's where we'll have, the interdisciplinary, the Holocaust unit comes up, and the students, teachers are all accessing the libraries. They're all accessing technology, different research sites, just going over all that stuff with them. The English department does a few of their research papers, the senior projects and that kids need access to her to be able to troubleshoot some stuff. I mean, we have a strong tech department, but she's the one that's most familiar with the stuff that they need to access right away.
Okay,
So,
great. Thank you.
Is the library closed at any time, like when she's at prep or lunch or things like that?
yeah, there are times where students are not necessarily able to access it. Yep,
Unless the teacher comes with them.
unless the teacher's with them. Yeah. So for drop-ins, it's not necessarily always available. Anything else? Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening.
Hi.
So I'm Juliana Hanscom, Director of Special Services. I wanted to start out by updating you all on our coordinated program review. It used to be called the coordinated program review. Now they've renamed it. It's going to be the tiered focusing monitoring system. So this is the big auditing of special ed that happens every 3 years.
Yeah, does it have an acronym
for it?
Not yet.
Okay.
They will, though. They will, obviously. We love our acronyms in special education. 3 years ago, we went through the mid-cycle, so we are now doing year 18-19 to do our big 6-year audit, which is going to cover special education, ELL, civil rights, just about everything. But what they've done in the tiered focus monitoring system is they're breaking it to actually go over a 3-year period, kind of like what NEASC is doing, I think. NEASC is changing a little bit. So in January, I'll go to a workshop, a nice DESE workshop, where they're going to explain the process even further. And I think what they're doing is they're planning to have me do a self-reflective for a year and do our own investigation of the departments and see where we stand with meeting the regulations. And then from there, the second year, they're going to give me probably some files to go through as far as students and other things throughout the district to give them documentation on what we're doing, and then they come out the last year. So it's an ongoing cycle now, but I'll learn more about that in January. And so I've updated my special education staff, let them know what's coming, that it is going to be changing a little bit, but I'll probably be working with Loxie to put together everything as she had to do last year. So this will be my first year going through it in Lunenburg, but I've done it before, so I'm comfortable with the process, but it's going to be something that I might be reporting on you all about as it comes up throughout the next 2 years on that part. And then another thing that, it's funny that Brian mentioned computer science, because another shout out that I wanted to give was something that I learned about this week that our elementary school is doing. So in our Achieve classroom, our teacher told me that the students have shown an interest and aptitude in choosing to explore coding websites on their elective time in the classroom, which I just find fascinating. And so they're going to websites such as Hour of Code and Tinker during their downtime. This week they're going to be participating in an Hour of Code challenge. And when I looked it up, because I'm not the computer science geek, I learned that it's a global movement which reaches tens of millions of students in 180 countries, and they're working towards expanding access to computer science for all students, much like students get a biology for their time at the high school, or algebra or chemistry. They're looking to include computer science in that. So it was kind of neat to hear Brian talk about that, and then also bring it down to the 3rd through 5th grade. The kids they're choosing to work on that kind of stuff, which I think is really neat. All right, so moving on to my budget. I'd like to first note that I am the first one of the night to come in under my budget from last year. So I'm hoping that will give me a little bit of leniency on your part with that. But, it really is the luck of the draw, and how we know that I do eat up a much larger portion of the budget than the other departments. But we're lucky enough we're really serving students best in district right now. Our out-of-district numbers are dropping. This year, we're servicing 13 students. Next year, we're going to be servicing 11 or 12, depending on graduation. We have one student that's going to be aging out as of right now. So I'm really thankful for that, because it shows that we're really being able to meet the needs of students in district. And the principals have been great about bringing students back and working with me on that, and also helping to support the programs that we have in district for these students. So that's really awesome. And so I hope it continues to go like that. So although I'd like to take all of the credit for it, it's not. It's really a group endeavor, and everybody working together, which is great. But in looking at the increases, so focusing on the first one, I've got a slight increase in our special ed, just our general office supplies, and that really comes down to paper and envelopes and those normal things that come up. We've got a copy machine in our office, and so the ACE program is using it. Mike's coming over. Mike uses it all the time, so I'm going to focus on Mike. When I looked at this year, we've already Fran's already expended $600, so that's why I bumped that up. And Fran was quite happy for $150, and at this point, even if I didn't get it, I think I might put it in just because she was so excited to see that I actually asked for an increase in that line item, because normally I don't. I tell her she has to just deal with what she gets level funded every year. in that. The next one is our ELL general supplies. I asked them for a detail on their breakout. You have a tab on that at the bottom, I believe. You were given that information. And we're having more students move in. We've had 3 families move in from Puerto Rico. We're expecting more. And so our needs are growing. We're becoming more diverse in Lunenburg, so they do have some needs expended to that. And that's why I'm glad that we have a separate line item for that, to be able to track that over time and to see how it's growing or decreasing, and what the needs are according to that. The next increase is in our psychological testing supply line. So it is a significant increase in comparison to the others. But when I look at the trend right now, we've already spent close to $13,000 out of that line item. And so if I project what's going to be spent the rest of the year, I might be going to Loxie to see about taking something from another line to cover expenses that might come up. So I didn't want to shortchange us for the coming year. And that basically is coming to those testing protocols that we have to buy. A lot of stuff is going online now, so we don't even get the paper protocols anymore. You have to go and do the tests online and score them online, and then they charge us per usage on that. So that's for the increase in that line item. And then our collaborative tuitions have a slight increase. Those numbers do not include what I'm projecting. I'm projecting a 65% reimbursement for a circuit breaker next year. And so I've already decreased the tuitions with thinking what that 65% is going to be towards those numbers for next year on that part. And transportation is usually a big line as well. What I did is, you've got a breakdown on that. I had Fran go through and talk with the transportation company, look at our routes for this year, look at our routes for next year. We also have to cover McKinney-Vento students, so I've factored in those McKinney-Vento projections. And then I have 2 unanticipated routes that might occur next year is what I added in, because we do get a fluctuation in transportation. If we end up having an in-district bus that gets added on, I need to cover that somewhere, so I don't want to be short on that for next year. So that's why I'm keeping, even though our transportation, it looks like it may be a little less for projecting for our actuals, I didn't want to decrease it because of those unanticipated costs that might come up, which is why I kept it at the 425 for next year as well. And that's that for that. Any questions on that part of my budget?
I have a question. In the testing supplies, you said you've almost already hit the 1,300 that you've budgeted.
13,000.
13,000, yes. That you've budgeted for this year. Do you think that's enough of an increase for next year, or do you want to increase it more?
You know, I think it'll be okay. I think it will be okay. Yeah, I don't want to increase it more than that at this point. Usually from now until the end of the year, we've got a good handle on it, so I don't see it going that far over, and not having money available in other lines right now that I could move. It's pretty fluid with my budget, because every line doesn't always get expended right to that penny, and so if I need to, I can do those line item transfers, and look to grants to cover some of that too.
Okay.
Yeah, so no, I think it'll be fine for that if we're able to budget it for the 15,793. Any other questions on that part of it? All right. For my additional increases for next year, I am currently requesting 5 paraprofessionals for next year. We're currently utilizing some long-term subs right now to cover one-to-one needs as written in their IEP and to coverage for classrooms. So I want to be transparent with the fact of what staff we're utilizing now, knowing that next year I don't want the budget to, again, continue to be short for those needs that we have. And again, I've talked with all of the principals, and they're all very conscious about when students need support, when we can group students together, when we can fade support back, and they've been on board with that. But we do have, when you keep students in district, there are consequences to that. When you want to support inclusive opportunities for students, there are consequences for that too. So we need those paraprofessionals. And then this year too, we are looking to have our paraprofessionals get some additional training in RBT, which is Registered Behavior Technician Training. And our 2 BCBAs, Mary Young and Christy Shkuda, is going to be supervising that and having that go through our professional development days to give paraprofessionals even more training on good behavioral strategies and management, and be able to even increase their skills more in the classroom. And then the other increase that I've asked for additional staffing for next year is a licensed social worker. So in thinking about how successful our transitions program has been at the high school, meeting those mental health needs for students, as well as those students that are in flux that might not be special education but are regular education or coming back from hospitalizations, we're also seeing a need at the elementary school level for students who have mental health needs but are academically doing well, and they're in the regular ed classroom, but they can't always maintain their day in the regular classroom. They need to come out. They're not Achieve students. They don't need their work modified. They need support in their mental health, and their helping those issues that might come up during the day. So the thought is, when I talked with Heidi and I talked with Jill, the thought was to look at having a licensed social worker available for those students. We have 6 identified right now at the elementary school, and we have 1 second grader already identified at the primary school. So we're already looking at 7 students next year that would right off the bat benefit from having that licensed social worker, be able to work with those mental health needs, and also be able to look at providing families some support with wraparound services and accessing those services. And then also having additional separate class to go to when they're having troubles in the regular classroom, to be able to go with that licensed social worker into another class to troubleshoot and then try to get that student back into class. That's not the Achieve program. So that's my thought on that, to try to build even more supports in the classroom and the school. And then that continuity across the district, because as what you've heard, the mental health needs are blossoming younger and younger for students, unfortunately, and it would be great to be able to have this support for families even sooner.
So this would be a full-time position, yes?
Full-time
And do you
positions.
feel like that is a doable, what you just outlined is doable for one individual?
Yeah, I do. We talked with Heidi. Knock on wood, all of them usually don't blossom at the same time during the day.
That was my thought, was...
You hope that you don't have, all of them having a really bad day. So that's the thought. And right now, we still have other support in the building, so right now they're managing it, but I don't think they're being as proactive as they want to be. Right, Heidi? They'd really like to be more proactive and offer more support and help to the families for that. So that would be moving forward. Any other questions? All right.
Nope, thank you.
Thank you.
Right on time.
Were you
Wow,
watching us at
how was
home?
dinner?
Were you watching us at home?
Were you watching?
It doesn't usually work that well for me. Good evening. Well, we just wrapped up a great fall, so we had a terrific fall season. 6 of our 7 varsity programs were in the playoffs, districts, etc., including golf as a team for the first time in several years, but I know we've talked about that a lot over the last couple of weeks, but we did have a district champion. Both our boys and girls cross-country teams went all the way, individuals went all the way to the state finals, which was terrific, and we had a league champion there as well. Boys soccer had a terrific season, going deep into the playoffs, making the semifinals. Our field hockey team had another great season, again going all the way to the district semifinals in a close 1-0 game there, and really a goal away from what looked like going all the way to the state finals. Football qualified for the playoffs, and our girls soccer team improved dramatically over the last year. So overall, our fall season was excellent. We had 206 participants at the high school level, and that did not include and I forget what the exact number was, from our middle school cross-country team that was 50 plus there as well. And in comparison to the last 2 years, fall gates were up over $12,000, and last year they were about $7,400. But if you remember last year, we spent a lot of time in Leominster at games. We were spread out all over the place, and our turf field wasn't completed till the end of October, so that really impacted us. And I think we've kind of seen where 2 years of not having many home games and all the disruptions there, a lot of our students have kind of gotten out of the habit of going to games and things, and so we're trying to look at ways to bring that kind of tradition back in. I know we tried a number of things that were different this year. We played, field hockey at night along with girls soccer or boys soccer, playing 2 games at the same time, which created some other challenges for us, like getting everybody to pay as they were going to that front field, which is the way the ticket booth was constructed in the old stadium, everything going to the turf field. People could just walk down and they could just walk right in, or they could sit up by the greenhouse, which has spectacular seating up there. So we're dealing with all that. One of the things I did was when we had, after our first multiple games at night, I added another person to help at the gate, not just with selling tickets, but to try to manage getting those people who were coming in from the upper parking lot and seeing the soccer game, and of course going right in, and trying to keep them headed the roundabout way through the ticket booth first and then back out to the game. So we still have some challenges on getting those things established whenever you make changes. There are a lot of ways to get into our facility, and we try to kind of rope that off a little bit with block some areas with the chain, with signs, with the barriers from inside the school, and each game we learned a little bit more about how to get people where we wanted them to go. The winter season is now well underway. Our numbers are very good, with 137 students in at the high school level. Of course, we have fewer teams in the winter, so anything over 115 is good for us over the last couple of years, so 137 is very good. Our ski team is actually practicing. The mountain opened right before Thanksgiving, so they've been able to practice. We've gone sometimes deep into January before we had snow. The ice hockey team just got back this weekend from Waterville Valley for their annual trip. Went fantastic. Continues to be a unique thing that we continue to do as long as it's successful. Both the boys and girls basketball teams have held scrimmages already, and our winter season will open up this weekend with the indoor track teams going to Wachusett Regional for the first actual competitions. The only real surprise that came out of the winter season so far is we had 37 boys try out for basketball. On the sign-up night, we had 16
That's what
sign up.
16 signed up.
Yep, and that still continues to be a challenge is for us to plan the season when we have people who sign up and then literally 21 more kids show up in the last week. And that week before that is Thanksgiving, so it's a very busy week. It's a short week. I came in on the weekend, had a ton of forms piled up, and we have an obligation to clear them, make sure they're academically eligible, to make sure that they're medically qualified to be there before we can put them on the court. So it makes for a very, very busy weekend, and even Monday morning and Monday afternoon, right up till I was there on the court as the tryouts were starting, and kids were calling their parents, and the forms were coming in right up till we started. So it continues to be a challenge to figure out how many kids we have on our teams. It was a challenge in the fall. We moved the sign-up. We used to do the sign-up in August, and we moved it back to June to try to get a jump on it, and that really hasn't helped either. So if anybody has any good ideas, I'm willing to try anything.
Then we just stop letting them try out if they don't sign up.
I was going to say perhaps a deadline further up.
Yep.
For example, we're trying the 27th, 28th, something like that.
It was Monday after Thanksgiving.
So that was the 27th.
Yeah.
So if your paperwork's not in by the 20th, you don't try out. It's not mom and dad running down at 6:59 p.m. with the stuff.
Yeah.
You know, information goes out in a multitude of ways.
There's got to be
And if
consequences.
students are motivated to play and they understand that, no kidding, I can't try out if it's not in by, whether it's 1 week before, whatever's going to give you adequate time to sort through everything. Because it can't be that crazy.
It'll only take one season of us
Of somebody
doing that,
not getting
and
to
then
try
people
out.
not being able to try out, for them to realize that.
And I will come up with a plan for the spring, because normally we do the spring signups in the first week of March. So we'll publicize well ahead of time the deadline to be included in tryouts. And I'll run it by you before I put it out there, so.
Put it on
we talked
us.
about.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did.
It's
Well,
really
I
hard to
think if
consider
we're
a
going to
hard
set that kind of firm
has to be a
role,
policy.
it needs
Yep.
to be in policy.
Does. It just- We
can-
Because it needs to
doesn't
be
fall on him.
something that the community and the administrators know that that's what it is, and that this body will enforce it if there's a
Absolutely.
challenge to it, because it is in policy.
And then it doesn't fall on you or the principals, it falls on us.
And all of this, even the
Oh,
budget
yeah.
planning, everything, it's difficult to plan without knowing what we
Absolutely.
have, because so much of what we do is dependent on the numbers. And we do a lot of paperwork for waivers for teams, and then we don't need
Right.
them. And so it is difficult without some sort of method of getting them to come do the paperwork. And there is some work we could do on the paperwork to make that, as many of you know, filling out that form is, if we could, we're hoping it'll be electronic, it'll save the information so you don't have to put that information in, as I've done it now 14 times, and this spring will be 15, and none of my information has changed since I did it as for my son as an 8th grader. So I think we can help along those lines too. So I hope, in January, or February, I'll be showing you a new process and get your approval on that, and hopefully we can try it out for the spring season. I think that would be fantastic. And really, the big one is that helps is in the fall, for the fall season, because that is our biggest season.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the update of where we sit right now.
Okay.
And I'm sure you see nothing in my budget that,
Well, why don't you hit the highlights there, mister?
Just the
Sure.
slight increases.
I know it doesn't appear right off the top, but the athletic coaches is by and far the biggest change in the budget. That number really reflects a $15,000 increase for 10 what we've deemed as associate coaches. This has been discussed among the coaching staff, and several years ago, I proposed an increase in number of coaches. We've really operated off the same formula that's been in existence probably for 40 years on our coaching staff, and how they're organized and distributed. And that question came up at our athletic advisory was, how do we decide how many coaches? And my answer was, that's how many were there when I got the position, and it's always been something of a difficult task to negotiate changes in that, because it was always part of the school teacher's contract, and although a good percentage of our coaches are not teachers, so it hasn't really received a lot of attention. We're at a point where our teams all of our teams compete at a high level. The expectations are high, and we continue to have the coaches dealing with multiple kids, sometimes at a 20-to-1 ratio on a sports field or on the court or on the ice or on, the track or anywhere else, where we ask the coaches to do a lot of things, and they're outnumbered. Adding another coaching position to assist both the varsity and junior varsity coach is what I'm looking for. To offer some relief on whether it's just day-to-day practices and dealing with the number of drills they do, or breaking teams up into smaller numbers to work on specific skills and things. So this proposed associate coach would work under the direction of the varsity coach, and in times the JV coach, in a position where they would be offering support to the teams. Now, we have a number of these people already out there on all of our teams volunteering. If you ask me how many field hockey coaches do we have, and I said 2, you'd be, if you're at a game, you're wondering where are all these other people come. They're just really great people who come in and give a lot of their time and things to all of our programs. Every one of our programs have these people in there, and I would like to make them employees, make them official in that capacity, and what I'm asking for is a stipend of $1,500 per season for those positions.
Can you just give me a little short background on how it's decided how many coaches, or if an associate coach was added? Just because I am not understanding some, for example, junior varsity girls soccer has 2 coaches, but junior varsity boys soccer only has 1.
And that
so
was
varsity, like, how do you?
That's the only one that didn't fit in. In this case, we'd be adding 1 to boys soccer, but not to girls soccer, because a couple of years ago, there was a strong sentiment that we needed a female coach amongst our girls soccer program. We hadn't had a female coach in our girls soccer program for, I'm not sure if we ever did. We had lost a coach who'd been there for a long time, had moved on, and we hired 2 coaches basically at the step 1 salary in order to do that. And it's helped our girls program. Our girls program had gone to where we didn't have a JV program at all. We went for 1 season or 2 seasons without a JV program. So we're trying to bring that program back, and it's paid off over the last 3 seasons that our girls' numbers are up, our girls' program is doing better, and it's just a matter of getting more coaching involved. It's just more time with the kids, and that's the idea behind adding another coach to our other programs. We'd be adding coaches to boys soccer, field hockey, golf, boys basketball, girls basketball, ice hockey, baseball, softball, boys lacrosse, and girls lacrosse. Okay.
Across the board, really.
And that would allow us just to provide more attention and more coaching to all of our kids.
Is there a ratio of that is ideal for coaches to players?
It varies from
It
sport
just
to
varies,
sport.
okay.
It
All
really
right, I just
does.
wasn't sure if it
You know,
was.
football's always had more coaches, and football has a freshman level that the other sports don't. But I can put an 8th grade or 9th grade student in most other sports on the field with 11th and 12th graders, and we do not want to do that in football. It's just a different game, and with that aspect of it, the complexity of football, the movement from the locations where they practice at times and things, there have always been more coaches involved in that. And I think that's somewhat maybe outdated thinking that we can run a soccer program or a basketball program, baseball, something with 1 person in there, because all of those sports have a lot of technical aspects to it. It's not 1 position. I can say I'm the cross-country coach. Every one of the kids on my team is doing the exact same thing. Okay? In field hockey and soccer, there are specialty positions in all of those that don't get the attention that they definitely deserve. And that's what's driving this idea, is that it's time to add another coach to the position. Field hockey, 40 girls this year.
Wow.
2 coaches.
Yep. Okay.
Right. And there's a lot of a technical aspect to field hockey and the number of positions they play, and asking our coaches really to be not just knowledgeable about each of these positions, but expert, and also to be able to deliver the instruction in a short period of time to all of those girls is really impossible to do. So I'm looking that this would really upgrade our programs, the first really major upgrade we've done, and the first change to this coaching distribution probably in the history of the school system, because it's always been this way. I've been in the system as a coach for a long time, and it didn't change from the time I was here in high school a long time ago. So it was the same idea. You had a varsity coach and a JV coach, and everybody got the job done. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't.
Was this talked about at the Athletic Advisory Council Committee meeting? Did you guys talk about this?
We did.
Okay.
This was actually in the last meeting that we had that we haven't gotten around in the agenda yet
Okay.
to talk about.
Okay.
It did come up as a question about how do you decide how many coaches are on each team, and I said, well, there was a sheet of paper when the coaching positions, when I got the position, and it never changed. So, it worked for a long time, but I think you see that most of the teams that we play are much like us. They have larger coaching staffs as they go on. A lot of schools have more, and few schools have less, and I think it's just something we embrace as part of our philosophy on providing a quality experience for our kids, or we kind of stay at the level we're at.
Another question. The two people now that you have working the gate, where do their salaries come out of in the budget?
That comes out of special details athletic events. And
So that's the revolving fund?
that one, is that one?
Is that, because it says
No, I don't think that is
No,
revolving.
it's out of the operation. It's in black.
black? Oh, okay, got it. First line. Okay.
So all of our games where we charge admission to have an administrative part to that, the charging. The tickets, we also have, like in basketball, we have someone running the shot clock and that. And
Okay.
we pay basically a flat rate of $50 per game.
Per game.
Well, not per game, I'm sorry, per event.
Per event.
So
Oh,
a
okay.
ticket person will show up at 5 o'clock for a 5:30 JV field hockey game, and they'll stay through the half of the varsity game.
Yeah.
And similar for soccer.
Okay.
Almost all of our games, we stop charging admission after the half, right at the halftime. And so you're looking at a few hours of work, and then most of those people will stick around to give me a hand, kind of managing the game, the rest of the game.
Just to clarify, so that was out of the
Special detail.
as
The
out of
first
special
line.
detail, but it's not listed on that line item, but it is listed under secretarial support.
That shouldn't be under secretarial.
Ticket seller, scoreboard, shot clock, security.
Oh.
So just so we know it's in the
No,
right
that,
place.
I'm sorry, that is in the wrong place. That-
Okay,
Yeah, that was just a misprint.
okay.
And then the other question is the replacement of uniforms. Do you know which uniforms you're replacing yet?
We are on to replace, our oldest uniforms currently would be baseball.
Baseball, okay.
And currently gone out and asked for proposals, looking at the uniforms. At the athletic advisory last meeting, we brought in samples of all the uniforms we have. Baseball uniforms are the oldest ones we have. Probably the last ones we purchased before the more modern materials came along. They're very heavy. They're great in April, early April, when it's very cold. Not so great the rest of the year. And we're looking to give them a more comfortable uniform, something hopefully that will last a little. Baseball is very difficult. The pants get ripped, they slide into base. And I think one of the requests was that we go away from the white, which would make me ecstatic, because 20 minutes after they put them on at the first game, they look terrible. Those stains never come out of them again. But they have lasted 6 seasons, so we generally had gotten on a 5-year replacement program. We almost got through it the first time around. We got kind of bumped off for budget reasons. We've been back on it. We made we had a lot of cooperation with our booster clubs the last few years, where they all helped us get back onto the 5-year replacement program. In a lot of cases, the booster clubs paid for half or more of the new uniforms.
Yeah.
And now we're in a position where we can replace our uniforms on an annual basis and also have some money to purchase the 3 or 4 occasionally that get washed poorly or get lost or stolen or whatever happens to them, because rarely do we get them all back, or rarely do we get them all back in a condition that are really usable. There's always, I always look to replace about 4 to 6 other uniforms during the course of the year. And if I can get any deals occasionally, a couple of years ago I was able to buy, I think it was with those current, previous baseball uniforms, where the company had a good deal going. They said if I bought the varsity uniforms, they'd give me the JV uniforms for free.
Oh, that's a nice deal.
We started buying the JV and varsity uniforms are identical. We don't distinguish between the two. It helps us with sizing, and it helps us when kids move from one to another. And they can keep a number if they want while they're moving up.
Do you have any questions? Any other questions? No? All set? Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The last one. That was the last one.
That was it? Yes.
Okay, we're gonna open it- wait, we gotta open up for public comment. Do you have any public comment before the public entirely leaves? Oh, Phyllis. Miss Luck.
Phyllis Luck, 50 Sunset Lane. I noticed there's a $49,000 request for an athletic director that wasn't budgeted before.
Do you want to talk about that, Mike?
On my-
I was gonna say.
It's a shifting of lines to
Yeah.
distinguish it, to bring it out. The athletic director was in with the coaches prior to this.
So a few meetings ago, the superintendent and I proposed some transfers,
You weren't there.
and that line item transfer to adjust for the salary of the athletic director really drove that account very, very high. So it was really the recommendation of the school committee to kind of pull that out in its own separate and distinct account moving forward. And that's what we're doing. So it's really strictly a payroll account at the moving forward, and we're keeping the coaches separate and distinct.
Well, if he was included in the coaches last year, that was 163. So, is that what you're saying? He was included.
And then there was an increase. So we're pulling him out, pulling that salary out.
But I mean, that's a really big difference. It doesn't seem to work mathematically for me. It was 163 last year, and that included the 50,000 for the athletic director. And so without the athletic director, it would have been like 113,000. It's going to 150. You don't understand what I'm saying? Math doesn't seem to work.
I can take a look at that transfer to make sure that money was actually got into that account. My recollection was that budget should have been about $200,000. Because that was because I think people were saying that they were interested in that position. If it was that high, people were making light of the transfer. But in all seriousness, we tried to pull the money out, and maybe it's not reflected in that account.
It's not on there properly.
So you need to make some adjustments.
Let me make an adjustment to that.
Because that was not
we
what
did the
voted on.
transfer.
We talked about it at our last meeting that you were unable to attend, and the number was over $200,000. And we all, yes. And we questioned that because we thought, it only said athletic director, and we thought that was his salary.
Right.
And that's why we said we wanted that job. So he decided to make a distinction between coaches and athletic director, so that we knew that that one figure was coaches and that was his part of the athletic director, because he's also dean of students. So this is just the portion that's athletic director, and then part is dean of students in the high school budget.
And the athletic director and dean of students is his total job?
Yes, half and half.
He's half and half.
Oh, so it's about 50,000 for the other one? Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying? Okay, so that athletic coaches line has to be changed?
What I'm proposing,
Last year, yeah.
what I'm proposing to the superintendent is that I'll look into it tomorrow morning. I'll share the information with her, and then we'll repost that cover sheet with that, okay?
Thanks.
Okay? Any other public comment from the public? No?
I'm sort of public. I just wanted to thank the administrators and all the teachers and your office personnel who worked so hard to pull these all together for this meeting. There's bringing these budgets together. I know Mike changed some of the format this year, and that was helpful, but yet it was a change, and everyone, as usual, did just an outstanding job providing a lot of information. And obviously, we've got a couple things to fix in here as we've gone through. We've seen some questions to get some clarification, and so we'll get those repaired and put it back out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're on to reports. Athletic advisory, Mr. Jim?
As I mentioned, we did meet. I have my notes here. We met on the 27th, and we went over, we looked at the uniforms, talked about the uniforms that needed to be replaced, and Pete shared what the schedule was for the next things. Baseball uniforms, he said, was the next one. We talked about the fundraising transparency initiative. Almost everybody at this point, all of the booster clubs have identified what their fundraising activities are going to be or have been.
Okay.
And what it is specifically that they hope to get out of the fundraising, so that we can present that to the public and have that available, so that when a parent asks, why are you asking for money? What's this money going for? We can at least give them an answer without going back to the booster clubs to find out. We had talked previously about the various options for consolidating fundraising opportunities, and so there's a subcommittee that's breaking up to discuss those various possibilities. I shared with them the policy that we currently have around advertising. The superintendent shared with me to them as well. So the hope is that by the time we have our next meeting, that they will come back to us with some options and recommendations for how to implement some of those options. We talked about various service opportunities that might be available for the students as well, and in terms of giving back to the student athletes in the community itself. So that is also in progress. They're coming up with some firmer recommendations around that. Unfortunately, we did not get the student members
Yet.
So what we had wanted to do is we wanted to invite some of the seniors athletes to give us their impressions of their experience with the program. Unfortunately, nobody was available. That was the night of tryouts, and we couldn't get anybody to attend. We've identified what we're looking for in terms of student participants on the council, and that is in process of now. Pete's going to talk to the coaches about getting students involved.
Okay.
We really need to get those student representatives on the council.
Yeah, okay.
And that's where we are at that
And
point.
when's your next meeting?
Next meeting is going to be, the next scheduled meeting for the whole group is going to be February 5th.
February 5th.
At 6 p.m. Hopefully in the middle school meeting room.
Okay.
I need to confirm that with Principal Santry.
Okay. School councils, has anybody had a meeting since last?
School council.
Next week, or the 20th, I mean.
20th?
I have an update for the Lunenburg Primary School.
Filled in for me.
I filled in for Bertrand last Wednesday. There was just a general overview of all of the fantastic things happening at the Lunenburg Primary School, and Ms. Blaisdell went over those things. We were able to talk to the teachers about some other units that they're doing and their charters, portfolios, and their service learning. We also talked a little bit about any feedback that they have gotten over. There was a conversation about the notification system for Power School for low balance. One of the parents had brought up at one of the last meetings, and so that was a conversation just to look into. Some people were reporting that they had students, some teachers on the council reported that they had students at the high school and they receive low balance notifications, but some of the primary school parents were not. And so that was a conversation that we had about how is that differentiated, and can we just look into that? And then, but Ms. Blaisdell was very happy to report that she makes very few phone calls, and so people are definitely paying that bill, which we appreciate. And then we continued to talk about the budget and the emotional intelligence and things like that in the classroom. So things seem to be going very well down at the Lunenburg Primary School.
Middle school advisory did meet on the 28th. We talked about the budget, which was presented this evening, and those additional monies that he's looking for. We also talked about the staffing and having possibly 6 sections in every grade next year as a need. We discussed the MCAS scores, which are for the middle school stronger than the state average for the group, and that looked good. There's some discussion about the Project 351 community service opportunities that are going to be available, and the DC trip in May. They have 115 8th graders. Right now, they're looking at shortening the itinerary for Friday so that they get home earlier instead of at
midnight,
2, 3 in the morning, so that they're home later. And it looks like they're doing scholarships for 9 to 10 students to be available.
Or how many buses are they taking then?
They'll have to go 3.
3?
1290, I think, to
Right.
be the 3rd bus.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the number of buses.
Yeah, it was just, okay. And Turkey Hill has a meeting on December 20th, is that right? 20th, yep. So, policy subcommittee, we had a meeting. And we have another meeting.
And we have another meeting tomorrow. That's right.
Yes. And so we'll be bringing all of our work to you shortly after that, right?
Right.
Correct, yes. Shortly after that, we'll bring it to you to
Okay.
review, okay? Capital Planning Committee, yeah, we had to cancel our meeting because we did not post it. So our next meeting is next Tuesday at 5 here at Town Hall. Finance Committee, Ms.
No new updates since the town meeting.
Okay. Wellness Committee, did you have a meeting?
We have not met since the
okay.
last.
Okay, and topics for
And
future.
I believe Paxal is going to start meeting tomorrow.
We're going to add that then, we have to add that.
First meeting for Paxal tomorrow.
Next, we'll add it for the next agenda.
I believe it's 11:30.
And are you on that committee?
I'm on that committee.
Okay.
I was reminded.
I was gonna say.
It's only been a few months.
Okay.
And PTO's next meeting is on Monday.
Monday?
At 7 PM.
I knew there was no meeting. Okay, sorry, I skipped right over that. Topics for future discussion?
I just wanted to officially add that we look into having a policy for a deadline for signups for extracurricular activities.
Oh, you mean sports?
Sport.
Extracurricular?
I was gonna say
I'm
sports,
not
but then
sure
I
that-
thought,
Do you want to limit the extracurricular, though? That's not the same kind of sign up as,
I guess now that I'm thinking about it, sports is impacted because we have
Tryouts.
of tryouts, waivers, and the paperwork involved in that. So I guess it could be specific to sports, but I didn't want to make anyone feel like we were just doing it for sports, but I guess it's actually just.
But I wonder if there aren't any other activities that are impacted by late signups. I would think that there could be some, so I don't know, just something for us to consider.
We'll collect some information on that
Yeah.
okay.
for the committee, subcommittee to consider, and that way, when they bring back the policy,
Okay.
we'll have done that
All right, great,
research
thanks.
and make that determination.
And parks, we're going to have parks at the next meeting, correct? Or we
Tentative.
tentatively?
Yeah.
Great.
For to discuss, yes, the turf field. And I think that was it.
And that's it.
That was it. So I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 9:04 PM.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Are we up here? More yet?